So today we're going to dive into a survival guide for the ultimate underdog, the small, local business that's staring down a corporate giant. We're going to break down a pretty incredible playbook that shows how a clever alliance can create what they call a safe harbor, and that allows them not just to compete, but to actually win.
So this is really the core question, right? Imagine for a second you're a small local medical supplier. You're serving Medicare patients, you know your community, you're good at your job, but you are surrounded. How in the world can you possibly survive when the entire market is just dominated by these massive national distributors? And this really lays it all out, doesn't it? It's a total mismatch. On one side, you've got the local supplier getting squeezed by sky-high costs, tangled up in all this government red tape, and you can only place small orders. And on the other side, the national giants. They've got massive scale, basically unlimited buying power, and whole armies of in-house experts. I mean, it doesn't just look like a tough fight, it looks completely impossible. So that leads us right into the first part of our story, what we're calling the supplier's dilemma. You know, for a small business, trying to source products from all over the world, it honestly feels like you're trying to navigate a stormy ocean in a tiny little rowboat. The risks are they're overwhelming. And here are the four big waves that are threatening to sink that rowboat. First, your profits, your margins, are just getting crushed by the big players. Second, the factories overseas, they demand these huge minimum order quantities, you'll hear them called MOQs, that are just way out of reach for a small shop. Third, you've got this insane regulatory maze of compliance. And finally, there's just the sheer uncertainty and headache of international shipping. Any one of these things could sink a small business. All of them together, it's a perfect storm. Okay, so things look pretty dire, but what's the answer? Well, you don't try to outmuscle the giants. You build something new. You build a model that's designed not just for bare-knuckle survival, but for real, actual growth. And this is the core idea, the whole concept in a nutshell, a certified safe harbor. It's such a powerful analogy, right? The idea is to create this protected space where the small ships, our local suppliers, can get the security and the scale that are usually just reserved for the giant warships of the industry. So what is this safe harbor in actual business terms? Well, it's called a managed supply chain operating system. The best way to think about it is like the brain of the whole operation. It's not just some marketplace where you go to buy stuff. Nope. It's a complete end-to-end system that handles everything, from making sure factories are compliant to letting you place flexible orders, all the way to getting the product delivered locally. But wait a minute, how can one company possibly provide all of that? Well, here's the secret sauce. It doesn't. The magic is in an alliance of three totally different partners, and each one plays a super specific, crucial role. And this table just lays it out perfectly. It's a three-part model. First, you have an organization called AAEC, and they are the trust and governance layer. Then you've got DHgate. They're the sourcing and execution layer. They handle the factories. And finally, there's Greatway USA, the fulfillment layer, managing everything on the ground here in the States. The real genius here is how they all work together. Each piece makes the other two possible. All right, let's break this down piece by piece. First up is AAEC, the governance layer. In our safe harbor analogy, think of AAEC as the lighthouse. They're also the map maker. Their whole job is to provide the safe routes and the guidance to avoid the rocks. So what does AAEC actually do? They develop the standards for products for older adults, they help suppliers figure out all those confusing Medicare billing codes, and they provide education to help everyone avoid mistakes. Now, here's the really important part. It's a nonprofit, and that is the absolute key to its role as a trusted, independent guide. This is where the trust for the entire system comes from.
Okay, next up, we have the engine of the whole operation, DHgate, the sourcing execution layer. So with AAEC is the lighthouse shining the way, DHgate is the one that provides the sturdy fleet of ships, all these pre-vetted factories that are ready to produce the goods. DHgate's role is pretty simple, but it's a game changer. It gives small suppliers the power they just don't have on their own. It finds reliable factories, and this is huge. It makes those flexible, small batch orders possible. It also gives you total cost transparency from day one. You see the shipping, the tariffs, everything, right from the start. No nasty surprises later.
And that brings us to the final crucial piece of the puzzle, Greatway USA, the fulfillment layer. In our analogy, this is the local port. This is the safe harbor itself, complete with warehouses and even a repair station. It brings all that stability and support right to the supplier's home turf. So,
Greatway manages warehouses where here in the US, which makes delivery fast and totally predictable. It also handles all the messy but critical stuff, like returns and repairs. And by doing one last compliance check after the products land on US soil, it basically removes all the anxiety and uncertainty of international shipping. Okay, so we've got the 3 partners, we've got the model. It all sounds great on paper, but how do you actually get a skeptical small business owner on board? This is where the strategy becomes a real-world playbook.
And the strategy is just brilliant because it's all about building trust through a super low-risk journey. It doesn't start with some aggressive sales pitch. No, it starts with education. Then it offers a totally free supply chain readiness review. From there, a supplier can just dip their toe in the water, try a small pilot order, and only after they see that it actually works can they decide to expand. It's a classic crawl, walk, run approach. And this is the core pitch. It's so direct and powerful. They're not trying to be another Medline, one of the giants. The message is crystal clear. The big guys, they are built for massive hospital contracts. This system, this safe harbor, it's built specifically for you, the small, local supplier who's been overlooked and left behind. And they prove they mean it by targeting these really specific, often underserved product categories. They're not going after the fancy high-tech hospital gear. They're focused on the innovative home care market. Stuff like anti-fall footwear, home safety gadgets, mobility accessories. Places where a small, nimble supplier can make a huge difference. So let's talk about the long game here, because this brings us to a crucial final point. How does this whole model build long-term credibility? Because that's what turns simple survival into sustainable growth. The key point here is all about transparency and drawing a clear line in the sand. This slide shows it perfectly. The alliance says, look, we'll verify the documents, we'll provide the education, we'll manage the crazy supply chain stuff. But the small business, they keep full control over billing, over their reimbursement claims, and most importantly, they own the relationship with their patient. This isn't a takeover, it is a support system, plain and simple. And it all just boils down to these 3 things, the core value proposition. First, the alliance delivers lower costs to protect those precious profit margins. Second, it provides institutional trust through that nonprofit layer, AAEC. And third, it gives you operational stability thanks to the local warehousing from Greatway. It directly solves every single one of those core challenges we talked about at the very beginning. Which of course leaves us with one final pretty big question. We've seen how this works for Medicare suppliers, but could this be a blueprint for other industries? Could this model, a nonprofit for trust, a platform for scale, and a local partner for stability, could this be how small businesses everywhere finally level the playing field against the giants? It's a pretty fascinating thought to end on. Thanks for joining me.